My dear friend, have you ever noticed how a garden can be both a sanctuary and a battlefield? On one hand, there's the gentle hum of bees, the perfume of roses drifting on a summer breeze, and that peaceful sense of belonging when your hands touch the soil. Yet, on the other hand, there are the weeds, unyielding, stubborn, and always returning, no matter how often we bend our backs to pull them. I remember summers where my knees grew sore and my gloves tore thin, all from waging war against those green invaders. It felt endless, and for a time I wondered if gardening was supposed to hurt this much. But here's the secret I wish someone had told me sooner: not every plant in your garden is there only for beauty or food. Some plants quietly and steadily work as your allies. They cover the soil, outpace the weeds, and keep your beds healthy in ways no spray or store-bought solution ever could. Once I discovered this truth, my garden transformed. The hours of kneeling and straining gave way to slow strolls among beds where the plants themselves did the heavy lifting. I began to see that nature, when invited kindly, does not need us to fight so hard. She offers balance on her own. That is what today's visit is about. I want to share with you 7 humble but remarkable plants that protect your garden, naturally sparing you the backache and frustration. These aren't tricks or gimmicks, but living companions that bring both usefulness and grace. Imagine sitting with a cool glass of tea, looking out at your beds and realizing the weeds are no longer winning. That's the joy I hope you'll carry with you after today. Do you remember those childhood afternoons searching for a 4-leaf clover, hoping it would bring good luck? Back then, we thought of clover as something small, almost playful, a patch of greenery where we could sit and daydream. Many gardeners, even now, glance at clover and dismiss it as a weed itself. But here's the twist, my friend. Clover is one of the strongest allies you can welcome into your garden if you want to outsmart weeds without chemicals or endless hours of tugging them out. Clover works like a soft green blanket for your soil. Its tiny leaves spread quickly and knit together into a dense carpet, leaving no bare ground exposed. And when there's no bare ground, weeds simply have no place to take root. Think of it like rolling out a rug across your garden bed. The sunlight can't reach the weed seeds below, so they remain quiet, unable to sprout. It's nature's version of crowd control, done gently but firmly. Beyond its weed-fighting strength, clover also has a gift that many plants don't. It feeds the soil itself. Clover belongs to a family of plants that fix nitrogen, which is a fancy way of saying it takes nutrients from the air and tucks them into the soil where your vegetables and flowers can use them. This means that while it's shielding your garden from weeds, it's also quietly enriching the earth, preparing it for the plants you truly love, your tomatoes, your roses, or perhaps your rows of beans. It's like having a gardener's assistant who works for free day and night. I'll share a story with you. One summer, I grew weary of weeds sprouting between my tomato rows. They seemed determined to choke out the plants I had tended with such care. A friend suggested I scatter clover seed in the bare soil around the tomatoes. Skeptical but desperate, I gave it a try. Within weeks, a lush carpet of clover had spread across the ground. The weeds simply disappeared as if they decided there was no longer space for them. And my tomatoes. That year, they grew taller with leaves greener than I had ever seen before. I realized the clover wasn't only fighting the weeds, it was nurturing the very plants I loved. Growing clover couldn't be simpler. Just scatter the seeds on bare soil, water them in, and step back. They don't ask for constant tending, and once established, they carry on without much help from you. You can plant them between stepping stones at the edges of beds or even as a gentle ground cover under taller vegetables. With clover, you don't need bending or endless pulling. You plant once and the living carpet does the work for you. So, if you've ever thought clover was a nuisance, I encourage you to look again. In truth, it's not a weed at all, it's a gift, offering protection, nourishment, and ease. Still useful, just like us in our later years, proving that sometimes the overlooked things are the most dependable. Have you ever walked past a patch of mint and brushed its leaves with your fingertips? The air instantly fills with that cool, refreshing fragrance, almost like a breeze straight from a summer memory. For many of us, mint recalls iced tea on the porch or the scent of a kitchen herb pot, but behind that gentle aroma lies a surprising strength. Mint is one of the most determined plants you can grow, and when harnessed carefully, it becomes a powerful ally against weeds. You see, mint has a personality much like an old friend who insists on taking charge of a situation. Once it finds its footing, it spreads with determination, running both above the soil and beneath it through hidden roots. This aggressive growth leaves little chance for weeds to sneak through. It is as though mint draws a boundary around itself and says firmly, "No intruders allowed." For gardeners weary of constant weeding, this stubborn streak is not a flaw, it's a gift. Of course, every gift comes with a caution. Mint can get carried away, spreading far beyond where you might want it. I remember one summer when a neighbor planted mint at the edge of her vegetable bed. Within a year, it had marched confidently into places she hadn't planned, curling around her peppers, nudging into her beans, even appearing at the far side of the path. She laughed and said, "It's like mint invited itself to dinner everywhere." That experience taught us both an important lesson: mint thrives best when given clear boundaries. The easiest way to manage mint is to grow it in containers, raised beds, or along defined borders. This way, it can spread and flourish within its own limits while keeping weeds firmly at bay. Imagine a wide pot on your porch overflowing with fresh green mint. Not only does it look beautiful, but each time you pluck a leaf, you can use it in tea desserts or as a garnish. While you enjoy the taste, the plant itself is working quietly, making sure weeds don't crowd into its space. What I love most about mint is that it offers more than weed suppression. It gives back to you in daily practical ways. A handful of leaves steeped in hot water becomes a calming evening tea. Chopped mint scattered over fresh fruit or tucked into a salad adds brightness and joy. And when crushed and rubbed between your palms, the scent even discourages mosquitoes. So while mint fights weeds on one front, it also nourishes your body and soothes your spirit. For areas of your garden that seem hopeless, those corners where weeds always return, mint can be your fierce protector. Instead of wasting time and energy pulling weeds, you invite mint to do the heavy lifting. The trick is simply to respect its strength by keeping it contained. Think of it as a strong-willed friend who, when guided, gently becomes your most reliable companion. So, next time you catch that sharp, refreshing scent, remember mint isn't just an herb for the kitchen. It's a fighter, a protector, and a reminder that sometimes the most ordinary plants carry extraordinary power. Close your eyes for a moment and picture a path of old stepping stones warmed by the afternoon sun. Between the cracks, instead of weeds pushing through, there is a soft mat of tiny green leaves dotted with purple blossoms. Each step you take releases a gentle fragrance that seems to whisper calm into the air. That, my dear friend, is the quiet magic of creeping time. Unlike weeds that seize every bare patch of soil, creeping time settles in as a kind of living quilt. It hugs the ground, tightly stretching outward until the earth is cloaked in a fragrant mat. Because it clings so close to the soil, there is little sunlight left for weeds to claim. They simply cannot squeeze their way in, and if they try, the time's thick coverage quickly pushes them aside. It is beauty and practicality woven into one. What makes creeping thyme so special is that it does not just defend your garden, it enhances it. Those tiny blossoms arrive in clusters, bringing soft color that changes with the seasons. Bees adore it, fluttering down to sip nectar before floating off again. And the scent is like a secret garden perfume released whenever you brush past it or step gently across it. Unlike grass, which demands mowing and fussing, creeping thyme asks for little but gives so much. I recall visiting a friend's rock garden where creeping thyme spilled like a gentle waterfall over the stones. She told me she hadn't pulled a weed in that spot for 2 summers straight. Instead, her grandchildren ran barefoot across the thyme, giggling as the scent rose around them. She said it was like having a natural play rug that not only looked beautiful, but also freed her from endless hours of bending and pulling. Growing creeping thyme isn't complicated. It loves full sun and well-drained soil, and once it has settled in, it rarely needs extra water. It thrives in the very places where other plants might struggle, between stone paths, along borders, or in small dry patches where weeds often take root. Over time, it thickens into a mat so resilient it can even handle the light steps of visitors walking across it. And every footfall becomes a gentle invitation for fragrance to rise. What I find most touching is how creeping thyme teaches us a quiet lesson. Strength doesn't always come from towering height or boldness. Sometimes strength is soft low to the ground, steady and persistent. Just like us in our golden years, it may not stand tall, but it endures, protects, and continues to give beauty long after others have faded. So, when you think of weeds taking over your garden paths, imagine instead a living carpet of thyme, fragrant, forgiving, and steadfast. It's not only a plant, it's a companion that turns frustration into delight. There's something about sunflowers that stops you in your tracks. Tall, golden, and stretching toward the sky, they look like nature's cheerful sentinels watching over the garden. Most people grow them for beauty or perhaps for the seeds that follow. But what many gardeners don't realize is that sunflowers also protect your soil in a very quiet, powerful way. These giants are more than just decoration, they are guardians. The secret lies in something called allelopathy, a big word that simply means sunflowers release natural chemicals through their roots and fallen leaves that suppress the growth of other plants. While that might sound unfriendly, it's actually a gift for us gardeners. Those chemicals act as a barrier, discouraging weeds from sprouting anywhere near a stand of sunflowers. And if that weren't enough, their sheer height and broad leaves create a thick shade that blocks sunlight from reaching the ground. Without light, weeds can't thrive. It's a 1-2 punch of natural defense. I'll never forget a year when I planted a long row of sunflowers along the edge of my vegetable patch. At first, it was simply because I loved their bold color and the joy they brought each morning when I stepped outside. But by midsummer, I realized something had changed. The weeds that normally crept up along that side were absent. The soil beneath the sunflowers stayed clear, shaded, and cool. When fall came, I not only harvested buckets of seeds, but also enjoyed a season with far less weeding. It felt like the sunflowers had kept watch, protecting my little patch of earth. Growing sunflowers is simple too. They love the sun, as their name suggests, and do best in well-drained soil. Plant them in clusters or rows, and within weeks, their sturdy stalks will reach for the sky. The effect is dramatic, adding vertical beauty to your garden while quietly keeping weeds away below. They can be used to border vegetable gardens, line pathways, or even stand as a cheerful wall of gold in the back of a flower bed. What I find so encouraging is that sunflowers embody a kind of dual purpose we can learn from. They give beauty food and protection all at once. They remind us that strength can be generous and that sometimes standing tall is not just about being noticed, it's about shielding those who grow beneath you. For us in our golden years, it's a reminder of how our presence, too, can shelter and nurture those who come after us. So, when you plant sunflowers, you're not only adding joy and color to your days, you're inviting guardians into your garden plants that quietly battle weeds while lifting their bright faces to the sky. If you've ever wandered through a pumpkin patch in late summer, you know the feeling. It's like walking beneath a leafy tent. Those broad green leaves stretch wide, overlapping one another until the ground is almost hidden. That canopy, though beautiful, has another secret purpose. It is nature's way of keeping weeds at bay. Pumpkins and squash are masters of covering soil so thoroughly that little else can push through. Their vines creep outward in all directions, weaving across bare patches and curling around anything in their path. As the leaves spread, they cast such deep shade that sunlight can no longer reach the earth beneath. And without sunlight, weed seeds simply cannot sprout. Any that dare to appear are quickly smothered by the heavy foliage. It's as if the plants themselves act as living umbrellas, shielding your soil from both heat and unwanted invaders. I once watched a friend's garden transform simply by planting squash around her corn. In the past, weeds would always spring up between the tall stalks, stealing water and energy. But when she let the squash vines wander under the corn, the weeds vanished. The corn grew taller, the squash flourished, and she ended the season with baskets of food instead of hours lost to pulling weeds. She called it the partnership of giants and crawlers, a perfect example of plants working together. To grow pumpkins or squash, all they really ask is a patch of rich soil with a little compost and a good amount of sun. Once the vines take off, they require minimal effort. They will sprawl, boldly covering ground faster than you expect. Many gardeners even use them intentionally as living mulch, planting them beneath taller crops or along the borders of a bed to guard against weeds. By the time autumn arrives, you'll not only enjoy a nearly weed-free garden, but also gather fruits that can feed your family and decorate your porch. There's something deeply satisfying about plants that give back in more than one way. Pumpkins and squash remind us that abundance can come with protection, that shade can be a blessing, and that what looks like a tangled sprawl is actually a well-organized system at work. In our own lives, too, sometimes the things that seem unruly, like vines spreading in every direction, are quietly creating shelter and nourishment. So, when you look at a pumpkin vine stretching across your garden bed, don't see it as messy. See it as a shield, a provider, and a partner. It will guard your soil, deny weeds their place, and reward you with bright, heavy fruit proof that sometimes the best solutions are also the most generous. There's a quiet wisdom in planting something not for show, nor for harvest, but simply for the health of the land itself. Ryegrass is one of those humble plants, a true workhorse that many farmers and seasoned gardeners have leaned on for generations. At first glance, it looks like an ordinary patch of grass. Yet when sown thickly, ryegrass becomes a powerful shield, turning bare soil into a living blanket that smothers weeds before they can even stir. Ryegrass grows with remarkable speed. Within weeks of scattering the seeds, you'll see a soft green mat rising to claim the soil. That speed is its secret weapon. It outpaces weed seeds, drinking up the water and sunlight before they have the chance to compete. Once established, the cover is so dense that weeds are simply shut out left without space to push through. It's as though ryegrass politely says, "This ground is already taken." But ryegrass is more than a weed fighter, it's also a healer of the soil. When it's cut down and left to decompose, it enriches the earth with organic matter, adding back what previous crops may have taken. Farmers often use it as green manure, turning it under before planting vegetables. Gardeners, too, can use ryegrass this way, allowing one season of cover to prepare the ground for the next. The result is soil that is softer, richer, and far more welcoming to the plants you love. I once visited a small homestead where ryegrass had been sown in every bare patch after the harvest season. By early spring, the entire garden looked like a green quilt spread across the land. The gardener told me with a smile that she hardly saw a weed all year, and when she dug her hands into the earth, the soil crumbled easily dark and fertile. It's like the land rested, she said, and came back stronger. Ryegrass does best in the cooler seasons, especially fall and early spring. Simply scatter the seeds across bare soil, water them in, and step back. There is little fussing required. When you're ready to plant again, you can either cut it down to leave as mulch or turn it under to feed the soil directly. Either way, you've gained weeks of weed-free ease and healthier earth beneath your feet. In many ways, ryegrass reflects the beauty of steady, unseen work. It doesn't bloom with flashy colors, nor does it offer fruit for the table. Instead, it gives by protecting and restoring, by quietly doing what needs to be done so that others may thrive later. Perhaps in our lives, too, there is wisdom in seasons of quiet growth and unseen giving. So if you've ever felt weary of weeds or worried about tired soil, remember ryegrass. It's not glamorous, but it is faithful, a cover crop champion that works while you rest. When most people think of garlic, they picture bulbs hanging to dry in a kitchen or the satisfying moment of chopping a clove to season a meal. But garlic holds a secret that many gardeners never realize. It is not only a crop to harvest, but also a defender of your soil. Quiet, upright, and slender garlic may look unassuming, yet it carries with it the power to keep weeds and pests at bay while rewarding you with one of the most flavorful harvests you'll ever enjoy. Garlic grows in neat clusters, its leaves rising tall and close together. This growth habit naturally shades the soil beneath, leaving very little room for weeds to sneak in. More than that, garlic releases compounds into the ground that discourage many competing plants from sprouting at all. It's as though garlic draws a protective circle around itself, saying, "Here only I will grow." And as a bonus, its sharp scent acts as a natural repellent for pests like aphids and even rabbits. Few plants offer such a combination of gifts. I still remember the first autumn I planted garlic with the intention of more than just food. I tucked the cloves into the soil in tidy rows, unsure of what to expect. By spring, green shoots had emerged, standing like soldiers across the bed. What surprised me most wasn't just their steady growth, but how clean the surrounding soil remained. The weeds that usually plagued that patch were nearly gone. When summer came, I pulled plump bulbs from the earth and realized I had enjoyed an entire season of beauty flavor and weed suppression without lifting a hoe. Garlic had done the work for me. Growing garlic is simple and forgiving. Plant individual cloves in fall or early spring, pointed side up in well-drained soil. Space them a few inches apart, give them sun, and wait. As the months pass, you'll see tidy rows of shoots that require little care. By early summer, you'll have strong bulbs ready to harvest, and in the meantime, you'll notice fewer weeds troubling the soil. It's one of those crops that seems to give endlessly while asking for so little. There is something deeply symbolic about garlic. Though small and ordinary in appearance, it quietly changes its surroundings, warding off trouble while nourishing those who welcome it. In our later years, we too may feel ordinary on the outside, yet our presence brings strength, wisdom, and protection to those around us. Garlic reminds us that true value is not always loud, it is often steady, humble, and deeply rooted. So, The next time you plant garlic, think beyond the bulbs you'll harvest. See it also as a guardian for your garden, a partner against weeds and pests, and a faithful friend that enriches both soil and spirit. My dear friend, we've walked together through a garden filled with quiet protectors: clover, mint, thyme, sunflowers, pumpkins, ryegrass, and garlic. Each one reminds us that beauty and usefulness can exist in the same place, and that sometimes the best way to work is to let nature work alongside us. For years, many of us believed gardening was an endless cycle of bending, pulling, and sore backs. But when we invite these plants into our soil, the struggle softens. The weeds no longer command our time. Instead, we're free to enjoy the fragrance of thyme, the bold faces of sunflowers, or the crisp flavor of garlic, knowing that the weeds are already being kept in check. The lesson here is simple yet profound. Balance comes when we stop fighting nature and begin to collaborate with it. These plants aren't only weed fighters, they are storytellers. They tell us that strength comes in many forms: in mint's persistence, in clover's generosity, in garlic's quiet protection. They teach us that shade, fragrance, and abundance can also be shields. And in our own lives, as the seasons turn, perhaps we too can embrace this truth. We no longer need to prove ourselves with endless labor. Instead, we can lean into wisdom, experience, and gentle effort that carries greater results. I think of a neighbor who once told me she felt too old to keep up with her garden. The weeds had become too much. But when she tried planting creeping thyme between her stones and garlic at the edges, she found herself gardening with joy again. "It feels like the plants are helping me," she said, and in truth they were. So, as you look at your own garden, ask yourself, which of these allies will you welcome this season? Which one speaks to your soil, your space, and your spirit? I'd love to know which of these 7 plants brings you the most hope. Share your thoughts, because your journey may inspire another gardener who feels weary. Until next time, may your hands be light, your soil rich, and your garden full of allies that make life easier and more joyful. Happy gardening, dear friend.